started. Once again, if you're a dog lover, dog owner, and you want some information about flying, staying, eating at places that are more than just dog friendly. It's not just the Motel 6 will let my dog into my room. This book is about a lot of books like that. They start about hiding with your dog and friendly parks and stuff. Today's is beyond that. It's places that actually cater to your dog, restaurants and parks and hotels, not that are just friendly, but actually pay specific attention to you and your pets. So welcome to Book Passage. Thanks for coming out on a Saturday afternoon. We appreciate it. So does Kelly. If you've got a cell phone, if you can check that and turn that off or put it on silent, everyone around you appreciate that. If you don't want to upset Lucy, and if anyone's within the sound of my voice, come on back and meet Lucy. Kelly's very nice, but Lucy's really holding court here today. So Lucy's the long-haired Chihuahua who knows more than anybody. Has been everywhere. So again, check your cell phones. If you haven't had a chance to pick up a copy of today's book, in about an hour after some presentation and some Q&A, you'll have a chance to do so at the registers that you passed, the ones that are behind you. And once you pay for them, bring them on back in here. I guess you'll be signing. We may have to move Lucy a little bit, but anyway, Lucy and Kelly will both be signing. Lucy does have a stamp, but that's okay. At the table next to me. It's great to have Kelly Carter here and her long-haired Chihuahua, Lucy. Kelly is the founder of JetSetPets.com, a resource for people who travel with their pets. She's also the pet travel expert at AOL's pet site Pawn Nation, and also Elite Traveler, where she's a contributing editor. She's been on just about in every publication and on every TV show you can possibly imagine, although not everybody is on the South China Morning Post in Hong Kong. And with Venus Williams, she co-authored a New York Times best-selling book called Come to Win, Business Leaders, Artists, Doctors, and Other Visionaries on How Sports Can Help You Top Your Profession. Would you please welcome your friend and ours, Kelly Carter.
Thanks, Dana, for that great introduction. Dana's last name was Kelly, so I want to Kelly.
Very incestuous.
Yes. So thanks so much for coming out on a great, beautiful Saturday. I know there's lots of other things you could be doing.
No.
Well, you and your furry friend, but you're nowhere else you're going to find out about all the great pet travel tips that I'm going to tell you about that are in our book, The Dog Lover's Guide to Travel. And I know most of you already know Lucy here, long-haired Chihuahua, my little road dog. Lucy's looking for treats, so. Anyway, Lucy and I have been together for, it'll be 13 years in November. And Lucy and I actually met in an airport. And she wasn't wandering lost around baggage claim. Lucy, go have a seat. Sit. Anyway, she won't jump off, I don't think. She'll allow us there to catch her if she does. But Lucy and I, we actually met at an airport. And I had to go pick her up from a breeder in the state of Washington. And we got on the next flight back from Pasco to Los Angeles. And she was just so chill on the plane and just so calm and comfortable, even though she was in a carrier for the first time, was a strange person. And I knew then that she was going to make the best traveler. And 2 weeks later, we were home in Los Angeles for a couple of weeks. And then 2 weeks later, we went to the East Coast. And on the first flight, first cross-country flight, and we flew American Airlines. Legally Blonde was the in-flight movie. I still remember it like it was yesterday. And Lucy sat mesmerized looking at Bruiser, Reese Witherspoon's Chihuahua in that movie. She's like, I want that life. And so anyway, she's had such a grand life. We went on to New York, and from there we've traveled throughout the United States. We lived in Italy for 2 years. So traveled throughout all of Italy and throughout Canada and Mexico and the Caribbean. And so I've taken the time really to compile all of that information for my website, JetSetPets.com, which I launched a couple of years ago. And as I traveled around, I found it very difficult to find all the information I needed in one place. That is, if I could even find it at all. But I needed to know entrance regulations when we were going to France or Italy or Mexico. I needed to know which airlines accepted pets, what the pet feed was. I needed to find a hotel. There was so much I needed to know, and I couldn't find it in one place. So that's why I launched my site, which eventually led to this great book. This one's a little dog-eared, no pun intended, but I tell you, this was one of the first copies printed, and I've used this book so much, even as I plan my trips. It's not, it's not just for whatever. I'm a seasoned traveler with my dog, and I use this book, so that's to say that I think everybody is going to benefit from it, whether you're new to traveling with your dog or you're a seasoned pro with it. And I'd like to get a show of hands. Lucy, first of all. Yeah. You're so good. No, she's usually good. Yeah, usually she just chills. She wants food. She knows there's treats over here. And then you relax. So by show of hands, how many people are ready to travel with their dogs? No. Everybody's. The only two people who don't are the two people who don't have dogs. And so Simon had a cat, Lucy, and Ricky, for years. And Renato will get a dog at some point here. But I'm glad to know that so many people already travel with their dogs. And, some of the things that I've noticed changing over the last 13 years or so is how much easier pet travel has become. The main thing that's changed are the relaxed quarantine rules. So for people who travel internationally, or if you're thinking about traveling internationally with your dog, it is possible now to go to London and not have to put your dog in quarantine. So the UK relaxed its rules and got in line with the rest of the European Union about 2 years ago, and which is great, because I used to always love going to London, and I had to start avoiding that city, one of my favorite cities in the world, when I got Lucy, because I couldn't have a layover there when I was going to Italy. I couldn't go there, and so now I can, and you can too. So you just have to have the same procedures that you would do going to France or Italy or Germany, which is a microchip, rabies shot, and then there's a blood test you get. So it's very simple. Hawaii, a great destination for us because we're so close to it. Hawaii still does have a 120-day quarantine, but it also has a 5-day or less direct release program, which really means you can take your pet with you when you leave the airport. Now, it is costly. It's $400. But if you're going for a week, I was just in Hawaii last month, and I didn't take Lucy because it was a last-minute trip. To get around the quarantine, you do have to start the process 4 months in advance. I didn't have that kind of time frame. But if you're a planner and you're planning a vacation or so, you start the process 4 months in advance, and you can take your dog. It's cheaper than boarding. I had to pay $632 to board Lucy for 8 days. And so it would have been cheaper for me to take her with me to Hawaii. And that's why it's so great that so many hotels do accept pets these days, because it's actually cheaper for us. You can put them in a kennel for $15 a day, but you don't want to, you want them to have a little bit of freedom and everything, so it's great that so many places are accepting pets. Another change is the airlines are actually getting better for people who have to transport their dogs as cargo, which is still not something I recommend. It's still very risky. The Humane Society of the United States doesn't recommend it either, but it's good to know that the airlines are getting better. Last year there were 21 deaths of pets on airlines, which is still 21 too many. But 2 years ago there were 35 deaths. The year before that it was 30. Now it's down to 21. So it's getting better, but it's still so senseless when you read the reports of what happens to dogs and how the dogs died. Oftentimes it's a bulldog or something that should not have been checked anyway. Delta Airlines has a rule against checking brachyphiliac dogs, those with snub nose. But they made a mistake, someone let one on board, and it died, unfortunately. So a lot of it's really senseless, and so I just recommend that people do their homework. The Department of Transportation requires all U.S. airlines to file a report every month when they have an injury, loss, or death of a pet, of an animal. And it's filed to the Department of Transportation, which releases the reports in the Air Traffic Consumer Report. It's very important, I think, for anyone who's going to be traveling with a pet, has baggage, to read those reports. But you also have to keep in mind that I just recently found out that there's ways that airlines can get around reporting something. For instance, there was an incident last summer, and a woman was moving from San Diego to Boston, and she booked her pet's passage on United because United has what's called a Pet Safe program, and it does nothing except for focuses on transporting pets, which is great. But there was a layover in Houston in July. There was a delay. The dog was left on the tarmac for a couple of hours. The lady was videotaping the dog on the tarmac, which I would have been banging on the captain's door saying, somebody's got to do something, get my dog off of this hot tarmac. But anyway, when she finally got to her dog, the dog had suffered a heat stroke. And the dog didn't die, but it did incur, the vet bills were almost $3,000. United offered to pay for the vet bill if she signed a confidentiality agreement. Obviously, this woman didn't sign one because I wouldn't know about this story if she did. So she's gone public, and she created a Facebook page called United Airlines Almost Killed My Greyhound. But what's so interesting about all of that is I kept checking every month to see when United was going to report this incident, because it's required by law to report a loss, death, or injury. It was never reported because a heat stroke is an illness, and so therefore it did not have to be reported. So I really wonder how many of these other things are going on that we're just not really told about. It's really unfortunate. I mean, the airlines could be paying off people. So that's all to say that when you check your dog, it's risky. Chances are your dog or cat or bird or whatever is going to make it, but know that you're really rolling the dice. And I know it's so hard. Jill, you have a lab, Marley, and I'm sure you want to take them on the road with you, but it's risky doing that. So yeah, she won't fly in cargo. So you end up driving or something. Jill makes a lot of money as a travel writer. She could charter her plane, really. But I say that, but it's interesting. The Wall Street Journal ran an article a couple of months ago, and it was really just talking about how more people are chartering and everything. And what was really cool is someone got stuck somewhere, and this has been a horrible winter for anyone traveling in the Northeast and Midwest and everything, all kind of flight delays. So people are really chartering quite a bit. And what people have been doing is really able to hitchhike on someone's private plane when they're going somewhere with their dog. And it's great that charter companies have been able to connect pet parents and say, hey, we've got someone going to whatever, can someone hitch a ride on your plane? And that is going to turn into a business. Someone actually had started it, but I don't think it's not being run the best, I don't think, but I think that that's a great idea, is to get people together. It may cost you the cost of a first-class ticket or so, but if you're going on vacation, it's your one big vacation a year. We work too much as Americans, so we're only going to take one big vacation, but, pool your money with other people if you can, and get your pet from point A to point B as safe as possible. So those are some of the things that I have realized from the last couple of years traveling, or the last 2 decades of traveling, not quite 2 decades, you're not quite that old. Last 13 years with traveling with Lucy. The other thing is the amount of hotels which are dog friendly now. It's over 60% of hotels accept pets, which is a phenomenal number. So you really shouldn't be too hard for you to find a dog friendly hotel. There are still some pockets where you're only going to be able to get a motel or something. But for the most part, you will be able to find a quality hotel that accepts dogs. You do not have to sneak your dog in, like I've had to do many times over the years. So it's really great. So what I've done with this book is to find 75 great destinations. They're not always the best destinations for dogs. Most of them are, but I include a couple of places like Branson, Missouri, for instance, which is smack dab in the middle of the country. And Branson can do a lot better as far as becoming dog friendly, but it is getting better. There are some places to go. There are some restaurants to go to. It's just a handful. But I included a city like Branson in the book because it's important to know, because so many people go there that they can take their dog there. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. The same for Las Vegas, a very popular destination, obviously. There are so many pet-friendly hotels on the Strip now. All the Caesars hotels, so you've got Caesars Palace and Planet Hollywood and the Cromwell, which just opened with Giada De Laurentiis' restaurant, Four Seasons, the Cosmopolitan, Vdara just became pet-friendly. There really are a lot of hotels on the Strip where you can stay with your dog. The challenge is finding a dog-friendly restaurant. You have to go out to where the residents live. But again, Las Vegas is included in the book because Las Vegas does draw so many visitors. Other than that, you're going to find so many great destinations. We're so lucky to have Carmel by the Sea just 2 hours away. I mean, I didn't rank the places in the book, but if I had to, Carmel would be #1. That place is just like no other. I was blown away. You know, it's interesting. For me, I know I have it easy because Lucy's so small. You know, she can go a lot of places. I can sneak her into places. But you go to a city like Carmel, and you can have a big dog. There's a video on my website that we made of our trip to Carmel by the Sea, and there's a 135-pound German Shepherd in the bar at Yappy Hour at the Cypress Inn. And so that's great. Yes, Yappy Hours are very popular. We should go to those, son. And Cypress Inn has Yappy Hour every single day, and that's a hotel that Doris Day co-founded. That she's a co-owner now. The hotel's been around longer than she has. Doris will be 90 years old this month. But that hotel has Yappy Hour every single day. The dogs are allowed inside. You can have breakfast with your dog inside. The dog can hang out with you in the living room. They have live entertainment on the weekends or so. And it's really, I think that hotel has really set the tone for all of Carmel, where the entire beach is off leash. It's not unusual to see big dogs in wine tasting rooms, in art galleries, in boutiques. Everyone has treats for dogs. We have 53 restaurants in Carmel, and 30 of the 53 accept dogs. And a lot of them have doggy menus. And if they don't have a doggy menu, you can just ask the chef to, Lucy, are you going after my wine? You can just ask the chef to cook something for your dog. And so it's really cool. That's one of my favorite places. You know, if you look at a city like Seattle, Seattle has quite a few restaurants where you can take your dog, you know, and it's all kind of on the DL. They don't want the health inspector coming in there and blowing it for everybody. But I named some of them in here because some of them don't mind if they're named like in a travel guide or so. But those are really a lot of the cool things that you'll find in the book. One of the best things I discovered while researching the book, obviously anyone who knows me, you know I like my wine. So one of the trends that's going on across the country is a combination of cocktail restaurants and dog parks. So there's a place in Dallas called Mutt's Canine Cantina, which I write about. And this is just the best place. It's a dog park. You have your area for big dogs, an area for small dogs. They have attendants to watch the dogs. And you can sit there and eat and have wine, beer, lemonade.
That's great.
Isn't that great?
Awesome.
Denver has a few of those places too. I know, we really do. San Francisco's got to get on it here.
All of New Orleans has that because you can bring your cocktail.
Well, yes, because you can walk around the streets of New Orleans. But I think that that's just a great idea. It's a great business model. San Diego has restaurants which now they're getting a little small area so dogs can play while you're eating. And so it's really great to see how many places are really accommodating our furry friends. Lucy, I'm so shocked with Lucy. Anyone knows, Renata was just in D.C. with me last week. She just went to sleep when I spoke. Sit. She can't be hungry.
More, Mama.
I know, it's only because you know there's treats here. It's just not fair. Here.
Well, she's got me trained really well.
I know, exactly. That's it. Last one. And then sit.
That's your
Yeah, I think she's
I
got
think you have to hide them. She's looking
treats.
around.
No, they're gone. They're underneath.
Oh, you took them off?
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, now you choke on it
Yeah.
because you're eating it so quickly. These are things now, looking at this, it brings me to mind when I'm talking about all the perks for pets. Lucy does this. Lucy, would you like some water?
Yeah, she swallowed it whole.
They always say don't work with dogs and kids, right? They steal the show.
She needs another one to wash that one.
Yeah, exactly. But room service for dogs, so as we're talking about dog food and all, room service for dogs is another thing that I write quite a bit about in the book. And one of the really great perks that so many of the hotels offer these days. Now the problem with that is, changing your dog's diet when you're traveling. And it's not always recommended to do so. And even like the Lowe's Hotel does put on the room service menu for dogs, keep this in mind and only give your dog a little bit. I made the mistake of, Lucy, sometimes she's so good and I try to give her a little treat. And so I ordered some food for her on the road at the Lowe's Santa Monica, and I gave her a little bit one night, and I put the rest in the refrigerator, and the next day I gave her a little bit more, and then I said, I'm just going to run out for 10 minutes and get something, and I came back and she had eaten everything. She just like scarfed it down, her eyes were huge, and then she pooped, and then it's like, I figured she'd be okay, but an hour later I thought she was really having a heart attack. And so luckily we were in LA, where we're from, and I rushed her to the vet, and it's just she had overeaten. So, that is. Then she got all stressed out and got colitis, so we ended up staying long because it was. Yeah. So those are things that can happen with your dog when you travel. One of the things you do. All of you, everybody's an experienced traveler with their dogs, so I don't usually have to say, try to start small or something like that. But usually that's a lot of advice that I do give people is to, take a small trip. If you're here in San Francisco or Corte Madera, go to Los Angeles, take a short trip. Don't fly cross country on your first trip because you don't know how your dog is going to be. Maybe don't go check into a Four Seasons hotel. Go stay at a Motel 6 around the corner or something. Not that you live close to a Motel 6, I know. But if there's a, a lower price hotel or something, go there and see how your dog does on the road. I remember being at the San Diego W Hotel years ago, and a lady came up to me and she said, I saw you come in with your dog. And I said, yeah. She said, I have my dog too. She said, how's your dog doing in the room? I said, fine. Why? She said, oh, my dog's so nervous, it's pooping everywhere. And I said, oh my gosh. But those are things that can happen when a dog is in a new environment. It does take, you don't know if your dog's going to be a good traveler until you start doing it. But I do, usually recommend to people to see how your dog behaves at home. And if your dog has separation anxiety at home, he's going to have it on the road too, and probably not be the best hotel guest. And so I do always recommend that people get their dogs trained and that, they're not whining and barking and exhibiting other bad behavior that's really going to ruin it for, not just ruin your own trip, but ruin it for other pet parents who want to take their dogs on a trip later as well. Because I think we do all owe it to ourselves as people who travel with their pets or just in town, anywhere. I don't care where you're going. You owe it to yourself to, to follow the no trace left behind theory like you would on hiking. You pick it up, pack it up, you take everything with you. It's the same thing when you travel with your dog. Take a lint roller, get all the hair off of the couch or the bed or something like that. Even take a mat with you so your dog can lay on it. So your dog really isn't laying on the bed itself. Or, because people do have allergies, and a lot of hotels will designate pet-friendly rooms now and hypoallergenic rooms. So that's important because you are going to always come across people say, oh, I can't believe you have your dog there, and people have to sleep in the room and things like that. But a lot of hotels are specifying and designating those rooms now, which I don't have a problem with. The only thing I have a problem with is when a hotel makes all those rooms the worst rooms in the house. When I was researching the book, and I was in Myrtle Beach, and the tourism office had arranged for me to stay at a specific hotel, and they gave me a choice of two. And I looked at the one that had just been renovated, it was online, and I said, okay, I want to stay at this one, it was just renovated. And I get there, and the room is, it is just horrible. It could not have been in worse condition. And I went to the front desk, and I said, I thought the rooms had been renovated. They said, oh yes, but not the pet rooms. And I said, you know what, she didn't know I was a reporter. I just took them out of the book. I refused to stay there. and I went and stayed someplace else. Because I just think, and I put it on the Facebook page, I put it on their Facebook page, and I put it on my Facebook page on the Jet Set Pets, and I said, this just isn't right. And it was interesting, the comments that I received on Facebook, and one lady said, well, I'm just happy if any place lets me stay with my dog. So, and I said, that's not right, because it really is unfair. I mean, we're responsible people. Generally, I find that people who travel with their dogs or cats or birds, that they really are responsible. Because sometimes I'll meet people and they'll say, oh, I wish I could have brought my dog with me. And I said, well, you could have. The hotel is pet friendly. And they're like, no, my dog's not well behaved, so I couldn't do that. My dog is like a terror or something. And I think that for the most part, people do realize that yes, their dog is suitable for traveling or so. But like I said, getting back to the hotels, some may say, yes, you can only stay on the ground floor. And I understand that they don't want to necessarily have dogs in the elevator. Sometimes can be a little unnerving for other guests. There are people who are afraid of dogs and things like that. But I do like when the hotels do make accommodations. It's interesting enough, the Hotel Del Coronado, just outside of San Diego on Coronado Island, just became dog friendly. And that hotel has been around since 1888, and it's great that just last month it opened its doors to dogs and cats. But it bans specific breeds, which is the first one I've ever seen. I've never seen a hotel to ban breeds. And so there are no pit bulls, no Rottweilers. I think German Shepherds are actually allowed.
Really?
Yeah, but there are about four breeds that are not allowed. And I don't know if that's going to be a sign, once that gets out. Other hotels might start doing that too. I'm sure it's a way to lower their insurance premiums. As any homeowner knows, if you have a pit bull, you may not be able to get homeowners insurance. So it is interesting that this hotel did that. Plus it has a sliding scale, with the pet fee on, if you have a lower price room, you pay $100 extra for a dog. If you have a higher price room, you pay $200 extra. I've never seen that either. So it's interesting what the Hotel Del Coronado is really doing there. And it is pet friendly, but it comes with restrictions, which, for good or for worse, that's the way it is. And you may see more hotels do that. One of the other things I wanted to talk about, the one thing that hasn't gotten better yet, are the cruise lines. People always say, oh, are there any cruises I can go on with my dog? Well, unfortunately, the only pet-friendly cruise line is Cunard's Queen Mary 3, which goes from New York to the UK. Now, if you are planning to go to Europe and you want to take your dog that's too large to fit in the cabin, that actually is an alternative. Your dog cannot stay in the stateroom with you. It's in a kennel, but the kennel's supervised. They have, I think, either 12 kennels on board. They fill up fast. I'm talking a year in advance. These kennels are booked. So you really do have to plan your trips early if you plan to take your big dog there. But it is a viable way to do it if some people plan that far in advance. And I think that's a great alternative. I don't know when, the reason cruise lines are not dog friendly is because different ports, obviously, as you know, different countries have different rules on, it's very hard. We've been throughout the Caribbean, but you can't go to, Jamaica. There's some islands you can't go to, so you really have to plan a trip that makes sure that your dog can go to all of those countries and territories that you're going to be visiting. Interesting enough, someone had put together a cruise for dog lovers a few years ago, and I said, wow, what a great idea. And they were going to have all these contests, a look-alike with your pet contest. They had all these great things planned, and they weren't even accepting dogs. Needless to say, that cruise did not take place. I mean, I thought that was the silliest idea. I said, how can you, have all of these great things, and you can't take your dog? That just didn't make any sense at all. But hopefully, at some point, there will be cruises for dogs. The same with trains. People always talk about trains. Amtrak does not allow, Amtrak only allows service animals on board. But there is a congressman in New York who's trying to get that change. I recommend, you contact Nancy Pelosi or whoever. I contacted Nancy and said, okay, please support this legislation, and it is very important that we are able to take our dogs on the train. People do it in Europe all the time, and everybody survives just fine. So hopefully that will change. You know, a lot of things that people ask me about also these days, because it's such a hot topic with service animals and emotional support animals. And, you know, you have people with their fake service vests. And people, I see so many stories written that are incorrect. People say, oh, people just put a service vest on their dog and take their dog on a plane. That's not true. That's not the way it happens. You have to have a note from your doctor on letterhead. That note has to be sent to the airline at least 48 hours in advance. The airline will contact your doctor to verify the validity of the letter, and then your dog will be allowed on board. But so, you know, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think it's important for us as people who travel with our dogs to kind of know the rules too, because you're going to find yourself defending, you know, yourself and people. Why do you have to have your dog with you anyway? Well, because dogs are part of our family. And the whole humanization of pets really began about 20 years ago, where people started seeing pets more so as family members. And I love that it's just continued like that, and it's going to get even more so as people know that they can take their pets everywhere. So my favorite hotel chains for pets, Kimpton Hotels, number one, because Kimpton does not charge a pet fee, and it doesn't matter how many pets you have. You can bring 5 elephants there, they don't care. You know, you will never be charged, which is great. You have some hotels, you know, like the Trump Soho, I think it's $200 or either $250 to bring a pet, and that's if you can stay one night and your bill is going to be an extra $200, which is, it's really unfair. It costs about $37 to deep clean a room after someone leaves with a pet. So know that the hotels are making money off of us because we do want to bring our pets. You know, there's a hotel in London which charges a $1,000 deposit. They will refund the deposit if there's no damage to the room afterwards, but know that you're going to have to pay £1,000 actually, it's almost $2,000 in advance just to bring your dog. But for the most part, a lot of hotels will have a minimal amount. You know, W hotels, I love W hotels. The only bad thing with W is they usually do have a weight restriction of around 25 pounds. But I always tell people, if you have a larger dog, if you have Marley or so, call the hotel, talk to the general manager and say, my lab is very well behaved. What's your email address? Let me send you a YouTube video of my dog. You can see how well relaxed my dog is. You'd be surprised how many times they will make an exception and say, okay. But I do always caution to have that, get everything in writing, because I was just talking to a vet last week who I did a talk with at National Geographic's headquarters, and he has 2 large dogs. And he got everything in writing, and so when he showed up to the hotel, they're like, sorry sir, but your dogs are too big. And he said, no, I have a letter from the GM. And they said, oh, okay, and here are 2 gifts for your dogs too. You know, and so it does happen, because that is a problem with so many of the hotels having restrictions on sizes, is, you know, the hotel operators say they would rather have a well-behaved large dog in the room as opposed to a small yippy dog. And so chances are that you'll be able to take your larger dog in the hotel if it is well behaved. But so start making those videos and everything and show your dog in its best light, and, you know, act like your dog is going for a job. It's the same thing that you would do if you're going for a job too. It's like, okay, get those videos made. Okay, then one of the other things I want to talk about is some of the cool things that you can do. Because one of the things that I discovered while researching this book, and I had the darndest time because I was depending so much on tourism people, and it's such a new topic in a sense that sometimes the tourism people didn't know. I said, tell me things in your city that people would normally do that they'd be surprised to find out that they can do with their dog. They just really didn't know. So I really had to do a lot of research to uncover some of the places, whether it's going to, you know, the Jimmy Carter Museum in Atlanta, which dogs are welcome there. On the outside grounds, the grounds are beautiful there. So, you know, if you plan to go inside, go with someone and someone can watch the dog while you go inside. But the grounds are quite lovely there. Lots of lakes and ducks and everything. It's beautiful. You know, there are amusement parks where you can take your dog, all Universal Studios. Now, they do have a kennel, but that's good to know that if you are in Universal City, you can't leave your dog unattended in the hotel. It's like, and I want to go spend the whole day at Universal Studios, what am I going to do with my dog? You can leave your dog at the kennel there, which is really, that's a great thing to do. It's the same with Yosemite. You know, our national parks are not great for dogs. Grand Canyon is an exception, and Grand Canyon is listed in here. But there are kennels sometimes where you can at least board your dog for the day, or if you're going to stay in Yosemite overnight or something, that you can board your dog and then you can still leave after a day or so and go to a pet-friendly hotel. And so that's really important, how many businesses are accommodating dogs these days. There are also dog-only restaurants, which I didn't know about until I started researching this book. In Seattle and Miami, they have restaurants that are for dogs only. They have the cutest little bumper chairs, and dogs, you know, if your dog is like Lucy size and you push it up to the table, and it's fine dining for dogs only. There's some really cool things. Your dog can have a great vacation. The other thing I list is there's so many pet-friendly, you know, annual pet events. And some of us really crazy people really might want to plan our trip to New Orleans when Bargus is going on, which is right around the time of Mardi Gras, and there's a parade with dogs, and so, you know, the dogs can show their beads and or not show their beads. or not show their beads. Yes. But there's a lot of there's events in every destination that's listed, and so you can really plan to have a great time with your dog. I also list a lot of groomers, and you know, it's just not the dog-friendly. I do talk about dog-friendly beaches and the hiking and all that, but once you get done, you don't want to take your dirty dog back to the hotel. So the book, every section always lists the groomers, also doggy daycare, as I do talk about some places having kennels, but there are times if you're going to a city, even San Francisco, New York, you know, you want to spend the day at the museum or go to a Broadway show, and you may have to board your dog, or just for a few hours or something. So I do list a lot of doggy daycare places in there. You know, people should also be familiar with sites such as dogvacay.com and rover.com. That's like the Airbnb for dogs. And so say if you want to find a place, you know, say if you're going to, I don't know, Los Angeles, and you're going to a Lakers game, and it's like, okay, I can't leave my dog in the room. I need someone to watch my dog for a few hours. How can I find somebody online? And these people, hopefully, supposedly, have been vetted and everything. And so check out those sites too, which I list them in the beginning. Well, I've been talking so much. I'm going to take a few questions. Does anyone have questions? Yes.
Yes. For me?
In the blue.
Oh, yeah, okay. Two things. Have you ever had this happen? I stayed at a Joie de Vie in Santa Clara, and it looked like it was a former Holiday Inn. It wasn't that great. But the room was kind of shitty, you know, like you said before, and I noticed that it was kind of stained, you know, and not that clean. But we stayed there, and then when it was over, I got this extra charge. And I thought, we didn't do that. So I was thinking that maybe it would be wise if you're in a room that has stains to take pictures, and like when you're taking a rental car, you know, you walk around the car with the people first to show the bumps, because that really was annoying to be charged. And then, of course, I told them we didn't do that. So they took those charges away. Also, I have a senior dog who leaks a little. And so I always feel like, I hope she doesn't leak in this room. So I bring washable pee pads that like people use in wheelchairs, hospitals. I buy them on eBay, used cheap. And she always sleeps on the bed, but on these pee pads and never leaves them, which is a really great way to save their bedspread and use their mattress.
Two great comments.
Yeah.
And when it's like, you know, it's like checking into a room. First thing I always do is open the minibar to see is it full, because I don't want to be charged for somebody else. You know, sometimes they just don't come back and refill it before you check in. I think it's very smart to take photos, or even better, as soon as you notice that there's stains or whatever, go back to the front desk and have a staffer come and notate it. You know, these just like they would on a rental car. If there's dents or something, you know, don't leave that lock before someone knows that the car is dented, and don't sleep in that room until they know that that this room is really not up to par, so you don't want to be charged these extra charges. And your second thing with the doggy diaper, there's actually doggy diapers, and usually I bring them. I just wrote about them on my site. There's one brand that I love called Do Right Diapers, and if you go to the jetsetpets.com, it's on the home page. And a lot of times diapers, doggy diapers, they slip, they fall, they just really are not secure. This woman makes these diapers, they're made in the US, and it comes with a strap. And so that they really holds on to the dog very well. And I love those. And it may take a while to get your dog used to using them, because dogs, you know, it's got to be kind of weird. It's like, what, I'm going to pee on myself? I don't know how this is going to be. But it may it does two things. Either they'll get used to it and they'll say, okay, I'm just going to go. Or it'll just hold it for it until you can get your dog outside too.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to try. Even on airplanes, doggy diapers are great on airplanes too.
And belly bands for boys. No, you know how those work? Belly bands?
No.
So you put, it's actually
Oh,
a
yes,
maxi pad.
yes.
Wow.
Yeah, we're with Buffalo Senior Dog Rescue, so we know about dogs peeing.
Yes.
And its belly band is just a band that wraps around their male parts, Velcros, and then if they pee in like what looks like a maxi pad.
Oh.
It totally saves wherever you're going.
Yeah, we actually do buy feminine pads to put in the belly band.
Do you?
Because they're cheaper than the pads that are made for the belly bands.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're absorbent. They keep the fluid away from the dog's skin. And so you got girl diapers and boy diapers.
Yeah.
Good to know. We had a question.
Yeah, I go to a lot of restaurants, and the waitresses that are dog friendly, and the waitresses and the owners of the restaurant generally want to feed my dog the leftovers from the restaurant.
Oh my God.
And they come up with and these are one of my favorite are Japanese. It'll be really good Japanese food that wasn't finished on the plate, you know. And I really have a hard time because they're trying to be pet friendly by accepting me. And then when they bring up the food, you know, they can't stop. They keep bringing more and more and more, and my dog doesn't take, you know, high, rich food well. So I have to draw a boundary somewhere on this. But oftentimes it's really a struggle to say no for me.
Well, I would suggest taking your own treats. And if a waiter or waitress feels so compelled to give your dog food, say, you know, why don't you give them one of his healthy treats? And they're there because they like feeding the dogs or whatever. But it's like, you need to take more control and say, okay, this is what I prefer my dog to eat, so give them this treat instead of sushi or something that's, you know, that may not be the best for dogs. So try to always carry treats with you. And I was going to say, also know that, you know, we're pretty lucky where we live here, and when we're able to take our dogs to a restaurant, they can sit right with us. Some other places, you go to Boston, they have to be on the outside of a railing. It's the same in Aspen. Aspen, they let you get away with it more so, but the law is the dog is supposed to be X amount of feet away from you. Or parts of Brooklyn. You know, I lived in New York, and I went to breakfast one time with Lucy, and they said, oh no, she has to sit on the outside of the railing. And I said, well, that's just not going to happen, so I left. But know that just because a restaurant is dog-friendly doesn't mean your dog can always be right with you. Simon, you had a question?
Yes, my question is about driving, car travel.
Yes.
So do you write about that? Do you have stories?
I do.
What to do, what not to do?
Yes, do not let your dog ride in the front seat with its head hanging out of the window. That's just one of the worst things you can do. Debris can fly in your dog's eyes. It looks so cute to see the dog's ears flapping in the wind, but in fact it's doing damage. Lucy's trying to get your shoe off. There's
Yeah, I can take her.
no, she's
Okay.
usually really stay. You're in stay. And I was going to say, with the flapping of the ears, that causes blood to build up, and you can end up with a big vet bill, as opposed to, you know, you should put your dog in the back seat, harness your dog with my favorite brand is Click It. Sleepy Pod makes it, and it's called Click It Utility Harness. It came out last year, and it's been crash tested. It's the only one. It's been written about quite a bit because someone did test, and it came out far heads and tails above the other ones or so. But you know, and in some cities or some states, like the state of New Jersey, requires your dog to be harnessed. You can get a ticket.
Wow.
There are some parts, it may be happening in Southern California also. But there are some places, yes. And so the safest place for your dog in the car is in the back seat, in the middle. Either put your dog in a harness itself and harness it with the seat belt, or put your dog in a carrier, if it's the carrier size, and then strap the dog in. Do not let your dog roam around, because just like there's distracted driving with you know, people are texting and all of that. There's a lot going on with dogs too, and it can cause accidents. So I do address that. And if your dog gets, a lot of things, people always say, oh, motion sickness, what to do with the dogs who have motion sickness, or cats. And, you know, there are things that you can take ginger, for instance, giving your dog ginger, making sure the window is rolled down just a little bit in the back. Not enough where they're going to escape, and they're going to be secured anyway, so they're not going to. But there are some things that you can do to try to prevent the motion sickness. But yes, the car travel is addressed in the intro too. Ways to keep Sadie safe in the cars.
Does she like driving?
Lucy likes everything. Lucy's been in helicopters and motorcycles and planes, trains, automobiles. Yes. She's done it all.
Just back to the microchip thing. I mean, I know more and more people are doing microchips, whether they're traveling or not. Do you think it's going to spread to more countries as a requirement?
Yes, and most countries will require a microchip, and it's just a great thing to have, whether or not you're traveling. I mean, I found a dog lost the other day. It was just wandering around the neighborhood. Lucy, speaking of dogs wandering around the neighborhood.
She heard you.
I've never seen her so fidgety. This is like, oh. She's like, oh. Anyway, but I took the dog to Pets Unlimited, where I volunteer. It was just a block away. And they scanned the dog, and there was a microchip, and then they were contacting the company to find out who owned the dog. And then a lady came in, and she's like, oh, do you have my dog? You know, but microchips are just a great way to identify your dog. You know, if someone wants to take your dog, obviously, you're not going to get it back. There's one collar I like called Tag Pet Tracker. It's T-A-G-G. And Tag is a great device that clips on a collar. Unfortunately, they don't make it small enough for dogs of Lucy's size. But if your dog, you sign up for it, you have to pay a monthly fee just like you would for a cell phone bill. I think it's $7 a month or so. But if your dog wanders beyond a specific area, you will receive a text message or email immediately. And I tried it. Like I said, Lucy was too small for it, so I just dropped it in my boyfriend's bag, and so I was able to track him wherever he went.
That's hilarious.
But it does work.
And it showed you on a map where he was?
Yes.
It's multifunctional.
Yeah, it is multifunctional.
Oh, you've opened a whole can of worms.
I know.
Well, you can stick that in your kid's backpack.
You can, yeah. Now, someone's, dog napping your dog, which is a real problem in Baltimore, I believe, or someplace in the southeast, I think DC area or so. All they have to do is take it off. But if your dog gets loose, if you're traveling or someplace, and you designate, so if you designate the hotel is your safe zone, and that dog leaves the hotel, you will get text messages repeatedly. And that's just a great device. And like I said, it's not much. It's $7 a month, and supply, Lucy. If you didn't get it, you were a cat, you could have it. It's $7 a month, or $7 or $8 a month. But it's a great device to have. And hopefully they'll make them small enough for dogs of Lucy's size soon.
Anybody else? Time to sign books?
Yeah.
I guess.
Book signing time.
Okay.
Thank you, Kelly. Alright. So if you got a book, come on up. If you want to purchase one, they're at the registry.
Yes, good pages.
Yeah.
First doesn't stand
For a friend.
Lucy, you're so fussy today.
I know. It's like
Where's yours? Small one?
It's not.
yeah, I didn't remember
Somebody got hammered, so we give a
Oh.
And they dress the dogs.
Oh
my God.
Okay.
That's hilarious.
So the yay.
Black dog, old dog.
But also Marlon's all over the bars. Oh, yeah, bar.
So we take the
dogs.
find your new.
In fact, there is a bar
Size over 7.
what's your dog
near the dogs
Oh, really?
that they encourage you bring dogs.
Jill, when you write, are you a freelancer? Or
Yeah.
what little ones or big ones?
Travel.
Travel.
Down by the
Um,
FCA.
I did this in New York for 20 years.
Nice.
I keep that open for a
Get
little
a
bit.
good book together.
Yeah.
And, neither.
Hey.
You're
aging dogs,
But you
aging
said you
dog
could shoot
population.
California.
Aging dog population is growing rapidly.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that work.
Milk and books.
That's right. Oh, wait, who's doing that?